Hey, it's Ron McLean. Welcome to Hockey Talk on the Rock.
With Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
All right, here we go. We are back doing Hockey Talk on the Rock, episode number 103. It is Monday, October 23rd. We got Laura in from Italy. I'm still here on the Rock. And it's been a couple months, but we're going to do a little bit of catch up now that we're about, 5 games into the season, depending on which team you're rooting for. And a couple minor trades to talk about, a couple surprises around the league, and mostly, evaluating Canucks through 5 games. So take it away. What do you think?
Well, it's definitely the most positive start we've had in a long time, like probably since the COVID year, I would say. And there's things to be excited about. I mean, obviously, they started with those back-to-back wins against the Oilers, which felt really awesome because the Oilers were so hyped up to be this cup contender, and they might still be. I'm not going to totally put them down. And then that first game when Vancouver beat them 8-1, it felt so awesome. And I don't know if that game was more that Vancouver played extremely well or Edmonton didn't play great, but it was a good win. And then obviously the second victory against Edmonton, the Oilers played a lot better, and Casey DeSmith played really well for the Canucks, and basically got them that win. And then they went out on the road and, typically lost to Philadelphia in the sense that you beat a really good team twice and then you lose to maybe not so great a team. But again, Philly's been playing kind of okay to start the season. And then they lost again in Tampa. And that game also wasn't great. And then they won against Florida in kind of a back and forth game. And I guess like the overall takeaway that I'll say about the Canucks right now is their best players are playing extremely well. Like obviously you have Pettersson, Hughes, and Miller who've all started the season great, and then the goalies. So both Demko and DeSmith have looked really good. The bottom 6 is problematic. And there's still things in their game that I don't think is great. But they're hovering right around kind of where they should be, which to start a season we haven't been able to say for a long time. So
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. My takeaway for them so far is the way the 5 games have gone shows that like when their opposition goalie shows up, it's going to be tough for Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like Carter Hart has played really well throughout the season. Like he stonewalled Edmonton after the game that he shut out Vancouver, which I didn't see coming, which is kind of good for Team Canada.
For sure.
But yeah, like with the first 2 Edmonton games, like both those goalies looked terrible in Edmonton, and then Bobrovsky looked really off in the Florida game.
Yeah. The Kuzmenko goal for sure. That one, I was like, what is Bobrovsky doing? But yeah.
Yeah, but on the goaltender front, like it was a bit of a bummer in the Pearson trade that they, like, I know you touched on it already in the other episode, but that they had to give up a pick to get rid of him because he's not like a bum.
Yeah.
But to have that secure backup position that feels like it's been a long time, like Spencer Martin caught lightning in a bottle there a couple of years ago and looked like a great backup, but we kind of see who he really is now. To have like a solid number 2 that like you can put in for a third of the season behind Demko,
Yeah.
or if Demko gets hurt, like feels really good.
When was the last time you think they had a legitimate backup goalie? I was trying to think about this the other day.
Demko
And not like Demko, because he was like the heir apparent. And I would even say Schneider with Luongo, like they were both number 1 goalies.
Yeah, I mean, in the Miller era, who was their backup then?
Was it Markstrom?
It might have been because they got rid of they were trying to figure it out between Markstrom and
Nielsen.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that might have been it.
But it's been a long time.
Yeah. because the Markstrom Demko tandem was obviously good,
Yeah,
and like you say, going way back, the Snyder Luongo thing was good. But in the years between, before Markstrom actually became what he was for 3 seasons,
yeah,
it's been a while because they tried so many things, right? They tried going with an unknown in Martin. They tried Halak. They tried Holtby. Like it just
nothing worked.
there was a lot of frustration in that backup position. And again, it's only been 2 games, but
Yeah,
just has looked really solid. And I remember one of the games he started. I can't remember if it was Florida. It might have been Florida, where early on in the game there was a lot of offensive chances, and he kind of held them in it. And I remember thinking to myself, "Oh man, this feels like the games where Halak would be in net or something, and he would let in an early goal, and you just see the
yeah.
team late." And not seeing that happen was real nice.
Well, I mean, even in the Edmonton game, right? Then it might be even what you were talking about. He did let in the goal early, and the Edmonton came out really hot because again they'd lost 8-1, and obviously they wanted to start their season well at home. And that was kind of like, to me, I was scared he let one in, but then that was it. He was
Yeah,
very good after that, and I agree with you. It's like very promising to see, and I don't know how I felt about like DeSmith as a goalie before, but he looks solid. And again, the trend with the Canucks giving up draft picks, it does just kind of suck, like because they've had to do it so much. But we'll see how it plays out for them this year with getting DeSmith.
yeah. Moving on to their defense. I thought that the 3 new guys, and I'm gonna group Hronik into the new guy thing because we only saw him for 4 games last year. But
Yeah,
I think we're skeptical with him being on a pair with Hughes, but so
yeah.
far I've liked it. And Susie and Cole are not like world beaters by any means, but they felt like the type of defenseman that they've been needing for years, where like you know what you're gonna get, and they're just solid defensively.
Yeah. Again, I still think for the Canucks, their weakest point is their defense or their bottom six. It's one of the two. Um, and I'm not completely convinced on their entire defensive core as a playoff team level defensive core, but they've looked good so far. And by good, I mean better than they have. And there's an obvious exception.
Oh man, Tyler Myers has not helped his stock at all. Like, there's the hope that like he'll hold on to him, and regardless of where they are in the standings, they can get an asset for him at the deadline. And at this point, like who's doing that?
Don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, he's been problematic. I mean, the power play where he like tackled Pedersen to the ground, and like it's all, it would be funny if I wasn't a Canucks fan. That's what I said earlier, and I stick by it. But yeah.
Yeah, I
Um
don't know, one of the new guys that came into was like Suter hasn't been flashy, but I thought he's also just kind of been solid.
yeah, I think he's been fine.
Like he's not costing them goals or
No.
chances, which
No,
is
and actually, to speak of one player, I mean, the last few games, well, I think he was scratched last game, but like I thought that Hoglander's actually had a pretty solid start to this season. Like he's been noticeably better defensively, and he looks like he's working hard. And he is the kind of player that, even if he's not in the top six, he could still be like a legitimate NHL player, and that's encouraging to see. Um, so far, but we'll see.
we will see. And yeah, the Bo Horvat thing, whatever. It is what it is. Like he's chipped in a couple goals on the island, but the surprising one, I think, in terms of disappointment is Beauvillier, because he
I'm
seemed
not surprised at all. I called it so hard last year. He was good with Pedersen. He's super streaky. He's always been a streaky player, but when you take him off that line with Pedersen, like it's not the same. Um, and I mean it's in that big block of wingers who Like I mean, Besser started this season really, really well, and I'm really happy for him. He looks good. But if you think I mean, I even think Kuzmenko hasn't been great. The Florida game, he was a lot better. But Garland, obviously, we know the story there. You have Studnicka, you have all these guys that are players, but I don't know exactly what they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beauvillier to me just has been like invisible.
Yeah. But what's his role on the team now?
Right.
Like he's not really he's not a he's a offensive winger, which in the NHL is like the most common thing you can be, which is unfortunate. But that's the reason why the Canucks got him in the Horvat trade, right? Like he could have been had for free earlier in the season. Like the Islanders were trying to get rid of him, but no one wanted to take the contract. So I like he can be effective. It's just he doesn't have necessarily the role that he needs to have on this team anymore. And with Mikheyev coming back again, the wings are pretty loaded.
Yeah.
But we'll
Yep.
see. Maybe they find a trade partner for Garland. That's the other thing, I guess, in Canucks news.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess the smoke's all around Washington.
Yeah. And then like I heard like I don't know, did you hear like the Mantha for Garland?
I can't see it.
I can't see it either, but he's on an expiring deal and he makes more than Garland, so
Yeah,
maybe.
I was looking at it and it was more like Garland for Nicholas Jensen kind of thing. But yeah, whatever. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to hold on to him for a while to try and get the value up at least.
Yeah, but the problem again with Garland now with Mikheyev back is where do you put him so that he increases his value?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. In an ideal world, he'd be a line driver on the third line, but
yeah, I
see.
don't know.
Anyways, moving around the league, or who the Canucks play tomorrow night, right?
Tomorrow they play Nashville.
Tomorrow they play Nashville in the night where every single team is playing.
Yeah, and tonight there's no games. Well, there's one.
There's one, and there's one on Wednesday as well. It's so weird.
So
So Nashville's a winnable game, so we'll see how that goes.
yeah,
Around the league, I mean, we've got some hot starts and some slow starts. We talked about Edmonton kind of stumbling out the gate and McDavid being injured for what they're saying is a week or two.
yeah.
Detroit's probably the biggest surprise in a positive light, with Larkin and DeBrincat forming like an amazing duo so far.
Yeah, I mean they're 5-1, which is pretty crazy. I like talking about hot starts. I kind of don't see them keeping it up. I feel like teams are gonna figure out how to stop, their top line, and then like Husso is a solid goalie, but their defensive core is also not great. If you want to talk about not great defense, and I just can't see them keeping it up. But it's nice that they've had a good start. I mean, Ottawa has also looked okay to start. They're the other one I would say that's somewhat surprising. They're 3-2 now, but like if I was going to pick between the two teams, I would think that Ottawa will end higher in the standings than Detroit, basically.
Me too.
Yeah.
And Corpusalo is going to drive a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think Ottawa's defense is quite a bit better.
Yeah. And then I mean,
go ahead.
like in terms of like negative starts, like Washington has won one game and they've looked kind of, I would say, directionless.
Yeah.
And Buffalo, like we briefly talked about, there's a lot of hype with them. They haven't looked great to start, but I kind of think they'll turn around to some degree. Seattle is the other one I was gonna say. But again, somewhat predictable Seattle. Like
I talked about it before, and I'll say it again. It just seemed like last year was a year that everything kind of broke their way. From
Yeah.
the whole regular season to their playoff series against Colorado, it just seemed like, I didn't have a lot of belief in that being sustainable moving forward, and it still could turn around for them. But so far, this season has
Look,
been great from a Canucks fan perspective.
yeah. And there's three teams that are still unbeaten, and two of them, like Vegas and Colorado, I think everyone predicted, and the third one is Boston, who I said it before, I didn't think they were going to be that bad. I thought people were overreacting, but it's early. It could come back, the center depth to bite them, but yeah, those three. Who's your prediction on stays undefeated the longest?
I'm tempted to pick Vegas because I always pick against Vegas, and I just look at their team every year and think there's no way, and they always make it to like the Final Four. Colorado's playing well, and I like Colorado, so I'd probably go with them.
I'll take Vegas just because to do something different.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I could see it. And Boston's kind of the same as Vegas. Like, I always pick against them because I just see like the aging curve of their players and how many people left, and I'm like, I don't see it. But they are one of those teams that will always
they
show
know
me.
how to win in the regular season anyway. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we're at so far. It is early yet.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, the Connor Bedard show too. He's been good, but it just seems like a bit much. Like, how much? Like, I know they really want to sell their stars and stuff like that, but like the amount of like commentary during his games and the limelight and commercials and interviews and stuff, it just all seems like a little bit much.
I mean, I'll say this about Bedard. He shoots a lot, and I think he's gonna start scoring a ton of I think they're gonna start going in. Kind of like what happened with Stamkos in his first season. Although I'd say Bedard so far has been more effective than Stamkos was in the first half. But like there's signs with him that I think it's for real. But yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot of hype. It's an original six team with a generational player, and you know, they don't come around every. They come around every generation, so they're trying their best, and also with the flat cap and everything, I think it's a way to try to drive interest in the game. Like the commercial right now, right, is like the game's never been better, whatever, like hockey's evolving to the best that it's ever been. And I think there is some truth to that. Like if you look around the skill level of a lot of players in the league, it seems like most teams now have a guy that's like elite.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see. This rookie class seems very good. I mean, obviously you have the three from this year and Bedard, Fantilli, and Carlson, but also like Luke Hughes and Logan Cooley and all those guys. It feels like there is kind of a shift to the next generation now. But I agree. I think it's a bit overhyped, but then it always is with those generational players.
Last one. How many more games do you think until we see Ovechkin score his first goal?
Who do they play tomorrow?
I heard them talking about how 2 games in a row went by where he didn't have a shot on net, and they said that he has only done that once in his entire career. So
They
like,
play Okay, they play Toronto tomorrow, so I'm gonna say he scores because I know he scores a ton against them.
yeah,
And then actually they play again on Wednesday, so I think in one of those 2 games he'll score.
I hope so. I don't want this the Great Chase to be a disappointment after all the hype.
After
So
all the hype.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that team, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm buying Pittsburgh as a bounce back team. I'm not buying Washington as a bounce
No,
back.
no. I agree with you there.
Anyways, you got any other notes or anything?
I think that's it for today.
Okay. All right. Well, then we will sign off, and maybe we'll try and do this again in a week or so's time and recap a few more games and go from there. So this has been Hockey Talk on the Rock episode number 103. Thank you
Woo.
for listening.